My parents' golden child moved in after her divorce, seduced my boyfriend, and when they defended her, I exposed their favoritism to the whole family. My parents' golden child, my older sister, recently moved in with me after her divorce. She seduced my boyfriend, and when my parents defended her, I exposed them all publicly. My older sister recently divorced her second husband. Her marriage didn't even last 1 year. It was a messy divorce, and she wasn't able to claim anything because of the prenup. Her first marriage lasted 2 years, and both partners cheated on each other constantly. They didn't have much property or money, so there was nothing to claim. I cannot say the same for her second marriage, though. They hadn't dated long, but he was genuinely a nice guy. He took her back even after she cheated on him the first 2 times, maybe more. He seemed in love with her and wanted to make it work. My older sister was spoiled. Our parents pampered her too much, and she had been hand-fed all her life. She took advantage of her second ex-husband, and our parents wonder why she got divorced. They never corrected or reprimanded her for anything. It was a nuisance. I, on the other hand, got the silent treatment if I did anything wrong or if they thought I did anything wrong. They would not talk to me for days. At first it bothered me, but then I gave back what I received. They didn't care about me, so I wouldn't care about them. I went about my day normally unbothered. I learned to parent myself. At least I had the sense to do so. Since her divorce, she asked to move in with me. I refused and told her to move in with our parents instead. She's their golden child. They should take care of her. I was living with my boyfriend for 1 year. He had moved in with me 2 months ago. He didn't own a house. I started investing at a young age and made a few very good investments, so I was able to own the house and afford my lifestyle. I didn't indulge, though. I have a very minimalistic taste. My parents, who rarely call me, asked me to let my sister move in. I told them no, which pissed them off. I laughed when they tried to tell me she was going through a rough time. I told them I wasn't the one who told her to cheat. Their horrified gasps were hilarious, as if they couldn't believe their golden girl could do such a thing. I hung up on them. My boyfriend and I were good, but I wasn't feeling the passion. It was a dull relationship, and I made him aware of how I felt. He said he didn't want to break up, and that we could try doing more things together to strengthen our connection. I didn't think it was going to work, but I gave it a chance. This conversation was fresh and took place about 15 days ago. 2 days after my conversation with my parents, my sister showed up at my door. I wasn't home, so my boyfriend let her in. She had come with her bags packed, and that idiot let her in. I was pissed when I came back home. I didn't like her, if it wasn't already obvious. My parents favored her over me, and I had to go through a lot because of her. I tried to build a relationship with her, but she stabbed me in the back. One time in high school, I confided in her about my crush. She hyped me up, telling me to confess to him and getting me all excited the next day. I saw her making out with him in front of the class that he and I were in. I cried that day. I went home and told my parents about it, and they told me to get over my childish crush because it could be something serious for my sister. I told them she didn't even know who he was until yesterday when I confided in her about him. That stunned them for a second. She didn't even apologize. She was a narcissist. Instead, she tried getting more of a reaction out of me. My parents were still on her side. At that point, I had given up on her. I moved on and did my own thing. Even if she asked what I was doing or wanted to make conversation with me, I didn't indulge her. There were quite a few incidents even before this crush thing. One time I wanted to go on a school trip with my friends. I asked her if she was going, but she said no. So I asked her if she could convince our parents to let me go on the trip. It was a bit expensive, and they didn't usually let me go on such trips. She, on the other hand, went on every single trip. It sucked. My parents did say yes to the trip, but not to me. To her, I really wanted to go on that trip. I asked them myself, and they said my sister was going, and they could only afford to pay for one child. Back to the situation, I didn't know why she wanted to stay with me. What was she thinking? When I came home, my first instinct was to kick her out. She started crying and begging me to let her stay for a few days. I didn't feel pity for her. She hadn't even regretted cheating on either of her husbands or her other previous boyfriends. She laughed with her friends about it, telling them they were so dumb. I overheard this conversation when we were at my parents' house for Thanksgiving. All our relatives were there, so I had to join in too. The woman knew nothing about loyalty or love. I wasn't about to let her into my house, much less my life. My boyfriend, on the other hand, stopped me, saying she was my sister and that I should let her stay. For a few days I told him she could stay with our parents. They would welcome her with open arms. She started her fake crying again. I told her if she continued, I would call security on her. That shut her up real quick. My boyfriend took me aside and tried to calm me down. I was still angry, though. I asked him why he let her in. He said he let her in because she was my sister. He proceeded to convince me to give her a chance and let her stay for a while. I looked at her and asked why she wanted to stay with me. She told me she missed me. I can't believe I almost bought it for a second. I just wanted to have dinner, take a bath, and go to sleep. I was tired, so I told her she could stay for 3 to 4 days and then she had to be on her way out. She tried huffing and puffing, but I told her she could get out now if she wanted. I didn't trust her. She was here because she missed me. I knew her inside and out. She wanted something. We didn't interact much, as I had to go to work. On the second day, I came home earlier. It was the weekend, and I had finished early. I opened the door to my house, and no one was there. I called out but received no response. Even if my boyfriend wasn't there, where was she? He usually came home earlier. I called him later but got no response. I didn't worry much, but then it was almost midnight, and I had no idea where either of them was. I called my parents and asked if my sister was there, and they said no. I waited for them, and around 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard the door opening. She didn't have a key, so it had to be my boyfriend. The lights were off, so he didn't think I was there. I heard footsteps come in behind him, and when they were near enough, I turned the lights on. I could hear them giggling while trying to be silent. They flinched, startled. They were hanging on to each other, standing there with their clothes crumpled. It looked like my boyfriend and sister had a fun night. He had hickeys all over his neck, and they clearly weren't from me. I just stared at them. My sister didn't even look embarrassed. I hadn't expected this from him. The next thing I said was, "Get out." My sister laughed and told me to get out. I was surprised. Whose house did she think this was? She continued by answering my unvoiced question. She said it was my boyfriend's house, and that I had no right to tell them to get out. He just kept staring at the ground, embarrassed. At least they weren't that drunk. I started laughing. My sister thought this was his house. No wonder she wanted to come over and stay here. This was hilarious to me. My ex, whom I wasn't going to take back, started apologizing. He tried to stumble toward me, telling me it was a mistake and that it wouldn't happen again. I knew my feelings were fading for him, but I was still hurt. I didn't want to cry, but I was upset. I wanted to scream at them. My crying would only satisfy my sister, so after I finished my laughing fit, I calmly told her that this house was owned by me. I proceeded to click a picture of them and immediately sent it to the family group chat. This made her nervous. She asked me what I was doing, and I told her to check the family group chat. While she did that, I called security. Both of them panicked. My sister's expression of horror when she looked at her phone was so satisfying. My boyfriend tried to speak, but I cut him off, telling him that if it wasn't already clear, we were over. I told him to pack up his stuff and get out, or I would get someone to throw it out. The next day, my sister started crying. She could act. She profusely apologized, telling me it was a mistake. I couldn't take her. I told her I knew it wasn't a mistake. I told her she was a gold digger and a walking STD. I was angry now. I yelled at my ex, telling him I didn't know he was such a big man. I questioned what he was thinking, cheating on me with my sister of all people. He got teary-eyed and started apologizing again, telling me he loved me and that she showed up where he worked and seduced him, that it meant nothing. I told him, yeah, it meant nothing. This relationship meant nothing. Security came up and I pushed them aside and let them in. I told security to kick those two out as they weren't leaving on their own. My sister started screaming and begging. He, on the other hand, gave up. I shouted that they could both enjoy their romance on the streets, homeless, a 1-year relationship down the drain. I shut the door and took a deep breath. I convinced myself that he meant nothing to me and tried to go to sleep. The next day, my parents called me. I didn't want to answer, but I thought, let's get it over with. They started ranting that I should never have sent that picture to the group and that she was lonely, which is why she did that. I told them they were pathetic parents and hung up. What I did do was record the conversation. I sent it to the group chat. The group was already filled with texts questioning my sister about how she could do that to me. This recording would blow it over. They deserved it. Let everybody know their true colors. I blocked my parents, ex, and sister. My parents tried to do damage control on the group chat, but it didn't work. Everybody was furious with them. I was getting my revenge. A day later, my sister's second ex-husband reached out to me. He was still in the family group chat. He apologized for what I went through. I don't know if I want to get even more involved in my sister's drama. Update. 1 week later, my ex showed up to collect his things. I had already packed them up and left them in the lobby. I didn't want to see him or talk to him. The group chat is still blowing up. My parents left the group but were added back. The rest of our family wasn't done with them. Some of them even apologized to me for not noticing this behavior before my sister was getting dragged by all our cousins. Everybody had started speaking up about her behavior. My so-called parents and sister deserved this treatment. They wouldn't live this down for the rest of their lives. NTA. You're strong as hell. If it were me in your position, I would have started crying when they walked in. The audacity they had to walk into your house after they hooked up. Assholes. They deserve to be on the streets. End story. I, a 32-year-old female, have been married to my husband, a 37-year-old male, for 1 year. Before I met him, I started a small business, which I eventually grew to a point of making a nice income, a really nice one. I'm by no means rich, but I'm well off. My husband, on the other hand, makes minimum wage working at a shop. It never bothered me, and we combine our finances. Unfortunately, he's been spending irresponsibly, which has become a problem recently, but this is not about that. He invited his mates for a Christmas breakfast with their girlfriends and wives, and we saw them this morning. All his mates are from his job, so they earn a similar level. I didn't even think about it until it hit me when they started commenting on our house and pointing things out. Some comments from the wives were not so nice. I don't think I was meant to hear them, such as I'm showing off or it's too flashy or money doesn't. At Bayou Taste, said when looking at my green couch, which is perfectly tame and normal. During breakfast, some of his mates had a few drinks, not even wine but lager, and got giddy. They started asking how much things cost, etc. I dodged the questions, but my husband answered them truthfully. Eventually, he told them exactly how much I make. I was furious. I'm very private about my finances. Not even my mom knows exactly how much I make, and here he is telling people I barely know my financial details. When they left, I blew up at him about that and the lager. I didn't know he had served lager with breakfast and had drunk people. Over at 11 o'clock in the morning, he's saying that I'm uptight and should loosen up a bit. That it's not a good look, and I should. Stop looking down at them because they work in the supermarket. I'm not. I asked if that's how he felt, and he said no. But they felt I was showing off by being all dressed up. One of the wives showed up in pajama pants. He started going off, and I decided I'd had enough. He was drunk, and we wouldn't have any discussion. I'm still angry. I told him I'm not going to his mom's Christmas dinner because I didn't want to show off and stayed home. He's still at his mom's, absolutely wasted, and I'm just getting angrier and angrier and need a reality check. Am I the asshole for getting angry at him for telling people how much I make? So, your husband is spending irresponsibly when you have combined finances. Letting people insult you inside your own home, getting drunk by 11 o'clock in the morning, sharing your private information with people you barely know, ghosting you and running to his mommy's house? NTA. It's only been 1 year, this is going to get worse. Consider your boundaries and then stick to them, or you'll eventually start to feel guilty about being you. No one should have to deal with that from their life partner. Also, for what it's worth, green couches are awesome. Next story. My wife, a 38-year-old female, and I, a 43-year-old male, are hosting Christmas for the first time in our new home. Ever since I met my wife, we have always done Christmas at her mom's house. My wife's brother, a 33-year-old male, has a psychiatric disability. I had to Google the proper terms so I don't get downvoted to hell. He has 24/7 caretakers. He's been hit and miss for Christmas, and we don't know if he's coming until the morning of. Every year it's tradition to have a prime rib dinner with the family. My mother-in-law always buys a 6 to 7 pound prime rib, which gets devoured, so my wife and I never get to take any leftovers home. This year, since my wife and I are hosting, we decided to buy an 8-pound prime rib so that we had enough to feed 5 people, my wife and I, my mother-in-law and her husband, and my brother-in-law, along with having enough for leftovers. We made the usual side dishes and made just enough for everyone, but made extra mashed potatoes because I got a new ricer for Christmas that I was way too excited to use. This info is irrelevant. I just wanted to brag about my awesome ricer. After dinner, my brother-in-law broke out 2 dinner plates from his backpack and started dishing up the rest of the leftovers. Stunned, I asked him, "What are you doing, bud?" To which he replied, "Packing up leftovers for me and my caretakers." I looked at my wife. She looked dumbfounded. I looked at my mother-in-law, and she quickly responded, "Don't worry, he does this every year." My wife and I had no idea this was a normal arrangement, or were informed ahead of time to make extra. I stopped my brother-in-law and told him that the leftovers were for my wife and me. We didn't make enough to send him home with leftovers. My brother-in-law got upset and literally threw the leftover prime rib back onto the cutting board that he had loaded onto the plate, which was all of it. He pouted to his mom and then stomped off to the car for the rest of the evening. My mother-in-law and her husband left about 20 minutes later, skipping, opening presents to take my brother-in-law back to his apartment. My wife got an earful a few hours later from her mom saying that we were rude to not feed his caretakers and that they were expecting Christmas leftovers like years before. I fired back, she was on speaker, and told her it's not our responsibility to feed his caretakers when we were given no heads up beforehand. Had they mentioned something, we'd have gladly bought a larger prime rib and made extra food to send home with. My brother-in-law, but since nobody said anything to us, we had no idea this was a thing in the first place. My mother-in-law called my wife and me selfish and hung up the phone. Am I the asshole for not sending our leftovers home with my brother-in-law for his caretakers? Update: my wife and I decided it was a leftover night. We planned on taking the leftover prime rib, warming it up in gravy, and then smothering the herb-infused mashed potatoes I made. My wife opened the fridge, grabbed the prime rib, then went for the mashed potatoes and gravy, only to realize they weren't in the fridge. She hollered over at me and asked if I ate them. I told her, nope. Long story short, she texted her mom and asked if they took the mashed potatoes and gravy, and she said, yep. Her reasoning? Just make more. You guys kept the prime rib, so we took the mashed potatoes and gravy. I don't care that they took the mashed potatoes and gravy, but the fact that they didn't ask or say anything is frustrating as hell. NTA, and what entitlement. I don't know why you would be expected to feed his caregivers. Also, he ruined Christmas. I bet your mashed potatoes came out amazing with the ricer though. As I sit here in the quiet of my house, the one I built through my own hard work and smart choices, I can't help but reflect on the whirlwind of emotions that have crashed over me like relentless waves these past few weeks. It's funny how betrayal doesn't just sting, it burrows deep, twisting into every corner of your soul until you're forced to confront parts of yourself you thought were long buried. When I caught my sister and my boyfriend together that night with the lights flicking, on to reveal their crumpled clothes and guilty faces, it wasn't just shock that hit me, it was a profound sense of violation, like someone had ripped open my chest and exposed all the vulnerabilities I'd carefully guarded. I've always prided myself on being independent, on not needing anyone to validate my worth, but in that moment, I felt small, almost childlike, echoing the hurts from my past that I'd tried so hard to outrun. Growing up, I was the invisible child, the one who faded into the background while my sister basked in the golden glow of our parents' undivided attention. They called her their golden child, but to me, she was a shadow that loomed over every achievement, every moment of joy I tried to claim for myself. I remember the silent treatments, those cold days when I'd done nothing wrong but still felt the weight of their disapproval. It taught me resilience, sure, but it also planted seeds of doubt. Am I not enough? Why do they always choose her? Those questions haunted me, and over time I built walls, high, impenetrable ones. I learned to parent myself, to find solace in solitude, to invest in my future rather than beg for scraps of affection. And yet, here I was, years later, facing the same pattern, my sister taking what was mine and my parents rushing to her defense. The anger that bubbled up wasn't new, it was an old flame reignited, hotter and more consuming than before. When I laughed in that moment, laughed at the absurdity of my sister thinking the house was his, it wasn't just amusement. It was a shield, a way to mask the hurt that threatened to spill over. Deep down, I was devastated. My boyfriend, the one I'd shared my space with for a year, the one I tried to rekindle passion with just days before, had chosen her, of all people. The sister who'd stolen my crush in high school, who'd manipulated our parents into denying me simple joys like that school trip. It felt like history repeating itself, a cruel joke from the universe reminding me that some wounds never fully heal. I wanted to scream, to shatter something, to let the tears flow freely, but I couldn't give her that satisfaction. My sister thrives on reactions. She's a narcissist through and through, feeding off the chaos she creates. So I held it together, snapped that photo, and sent it to the family group chat. It was petty, perhaps, but it was also empowering. For once, I wasn't the one suffering in silence. I was the one shining a light on the truth. The aftermath has been a roller coaster. Blocking them, my parents, my ex, my sister, felt like slamming a door on a toxic chapter, but it didn't erase the pain. Nights are the hardest. I lie awake, replaying the giggles I heard as they snuck in, the hickeys on his neck that weren't from me. Betrayal from a partner cuts deep because it's intimate. It's a rejection of the trust you built together. We weren't perfect. Our relationship had grown dull, the passion fading like an old photograph. But I deserved better than this. I deserved honesty, not excuses about how she seduced him, as if he had no agency, no choice. That excuse only fueled my rage. How dare he paint himself as the victim? And my sister, with her fake tears and apologies, claiming it was a mistake. Mistakes are spilling coffee, not sleeping with your sibling's partner. She's always been a gold digger, chasing what shines brightest without regard for who gets hurt. Hearing her laugh about her ex-husband's stupidity over Thanksgiving dinner, that memory makes my blood boil even now. She's void of loyalty, empty of genuine love, and yet our parents still shield her. Speaking of my parents, their call the next day was the final straw, ranting about how I shouldn't have exposed her, how she was lonely. Lonely? What about my loneliness all those years, watching them fawn over her while I faded away? Recording that conversation and sharing it was my way of saying, enough. They are pathetic parents, enabling her narcissism at the expense of their other child. The family group chat exploding with questions and condemnations was vindicating. For the first time, others saw what I'd endured. Cousins dragging her, relatives apologizing to me for not noticing sooner. It was like a weight lifting off my shoulders. Revenge? Maybe. But it was also justice. A long overdue reckoning. They won't live this down, and honestly, that brings a twisted sense of peace. I've spent too long being the good one, the unbothered one. Now I'm allowing myself to feel the full spectrum, the anger, the hurt, the triumph. But beneath the anger, there's grief. Grief for the sister I wished I had, the one who could have been an ally instead of an adversary. We could have bonded over shared experiences, supported each other through life's messes. Instead, she's a constant reminder of what family shouldn't be, and grief for the relationship I lost, not just with my ex, but the illusion of stability it provided. Packing his things and leaving them in the lobby was cathartic, but it didn't erase the memories of lazy mornings or quiet evenings. I convinced myself he meant nothing, but that's a lie we tell ourselves to survive. He did mean something, even if it was fading. Losing that, on top of everything else, left me feeling unmoored, questioning my judgment. How did I not see the signs? Was I too trusting, too focused on my own world? Yet, in this chaos, there's growth. I've rediscovered my strength, the same resilience that got me through childhood neglect. Owning my house, my lifestyle, it's a testament to that. I don't need their approval or anyone else's. Minimalistic as my tastes are, they're mine, chosen without compromise. And the apologies from extended family? They validate what I've always known but rarely voiced. I'm not the problem, their favoritism is. It's liberating to finally say it out loud, to share it publicly in that group chat. Sure, some might call it dramatic, but silence only perpetuates the cycle. By exposing them, I've broken free. Looking ahead, I'm cautious but optimistic. My sister's second ex reaching out was unexpected, a reminder that her web of deceit touches others too. I don't know if I'll engage more, her drama is exhausting. For now, I'm focusing on me, healing, rebuilding, perhaps even dating again when the time feels right. No more dull relationships. I want passion, equality, someone who sees my worth without me having to prove it. And as for family, blood doesn't obligate tolerance of toxicity. I've set boundaries and I'll enforce them fiercely. In the end, this ordeal has stripped away illusions, leaving me raw but real. The pain is there, sharp and insistent, but so is the empowerment. I've cried in private, raged in silence, and laughed at the absurdity. Emotions aren't linear, they're a storm, and I'm weathering it. One day, this will be just a story, a cautionary tale of betrayal and resilience. Until then, I'll embrace the mess, knowing I've emerged stronger, unapologetically me.